Up to 50 seconds may separate the firing of a salvo from a naval gun to its impact on the target. With the shell on its way, the effect of its impact now hangs in the balance. Whether it contributes to the attack or is wasted is the culmination of many people's efforts and a high level of training. In the last decade, the balance of global politics has seen dramatic changes. The predictability of an east-west confrontation has been exchanged for a much more volatile set of smaller flashpoints in which flexibility and speed have become the military imperative. The Allied response has been to assume that future operations will be multinational ones under the United Nations, Western European Union or coalition control. These circumstances have led to the formation of NATO's Rapid Reaction Corps and the United Kingdom's own Joint Rapid Deployment Force. With the emphasis on flexibility and deployability, the object is to get expeditionary forces into theatre quickly. This is the way the United Kingdom sees the projection of power from the sea, and in most cases there is the possibility of combat against land forces. In this, naval gunfire support has a vital role to play as part of a coordinated fire support plan. There is nothing new about naval gunfire support, the use of gunships to support troops landing from the sea. During World War I, the Gallipoli beachheads were established with the support of naval gunfire. The D-Day landing saw one of the greatest concentrations of seaborne firepower ever assembled. And during the Korean War, notably at Incheon, the landings were supported by naval gunfire. Nearly 8,000 salvos were fired during the Falklands conflict. Accurate naval gunfire supported Special Forces raids to neutralize Argentine assets on many of the Falklands Islands and played an important part in the main landings at San Carlos and around Port Stanley in the final phases of the campaign. Both at Grenada and during the Gulf War, the threat of fire from a naval task force moving along the coast had a marked diversionary effect on the enemy. For the United Kingdom, recent conflicts have confirmed the importance of naval gunfire, and the effect of naval gunfire support on the battlefield has been re-examined. Prompted by this renewed surge in interest, the various roles of naval gunfire support in amphibious operations has been restated.
The three main roles are there to provide fire support for an amphibious operation when there's no established fire ashore. The land forces either haven't got guns with them or they haven't taken any artillery with them ashore. Also a supplementary fire support to provide additional firepower to a battery of guns ashore, and then finally really general fire support from the seaborne flank.
The scale of naval gunfire support is infinitely adaptable, and its ability to maneuver and redeploy make it ideally suitable to carry out numerous tasks in support of an amphibious operation.
In an amphibious sense, we might want to use it well before we land to soften up certain targets. We may even use it as part of a deception plan to go and show a particular interest in one area of coastline when we actually intend to land somewhere else. And again, during the landings, we may want NGS and indeed air support as well. And of course, after the landings, it can be extremely reactive because the land force commander on the ground can then tell us where his problems are, which targets he wants us to take on, and destroyer is there ready to go, high state of readiness, and with the ammunition and the logistic backup to keep it there for a long period of time.
The landing force component of Britain's amphibious capability is 3 Commando Brigade, and the point of contact between the brigade commander and the naval gunfire and other supporting arms, which will protect him whilst he lands and sustain him ashore, is the commanding officer of 2-9 Commando Regiment Royal Artillery.
My role is as coordinator of offensive support for the Commodore Amphibious Warfare and also for the Brigade Commander, the Commander of the Landing Force. And that role as coordinator essentially means that I have to ensure that all the firepower that is available to this amphibious task force is integrated together to produce the best effect against the enemy. I am, as the coordinator of the fire support, in overall charge of it. Beneath me there is a battery commander of the Naval Gunfire Forward Observer Battery, and he is responsible specifically for the planning of naval gunfire tasks in conjunction with a man on the Commodore Amphibious Warfare's staff who plans where the ship goes and for how long and so on. So it's effectively a direct chain from myself to the battery commander of the Naval Gunfire Forward Observer Battery.
The operational role of 148 Commando Forward Observation Battery is to provide 3 Commando Brigade with the forward observers and controlling staff to direct naval gunfire.
Grid 587868, altitude 470, over.
The 148 Battery forward observation teams are deployed primarily from 3 Commando Brigade headquarters, which is where I work with the Supporting Arms Coordination Cell, and the commanding officer of 29 Commando Regiment with the brigade staff will decide of the naval gunfire forward observers which are to be assigned to different tasks. The 148 Battery NGFO teams could deploy either with the Special Forces Advance Force, which is some 7 to 10 days before the main landing, or indeed as part of the Brigade Recce Force on the pre-landing force alongside other advanced marine units, which will be some 4 to 5 days ahead of the main landing.
The basic tool of 148 Battery is the naval gun, but it is not they who fire it.
386, ready, 44, 45, engage.
Shoot. Shot.
The naval gun has a number of advantages over field artillery pieces, such as the 105mm light gun. The fully automated loading system gives a much faster rate of fire, equivalent for planning purposes to that of a 105mm light battery. Important when it is realized that most casualties occur in the first 10 seconds of an engagement. It fires a heavier shell and can engage 2 targets simultaneously. But the naval gun has its limitations. The high muzzle velocity and flat trajectory necessitate careful planning of the fire support area to avoid crest clearance problems. Its accuracy has not always compared favorably with field artillery. However, system improvements, including the integration of GPS, have greatly improved first-round accuracy, but the fall of shot must be observed.
Rounds complete.
The naval shell only comes in 2 types, high explosive and star shell. The Navy's airburst fuse compares well with the multi-roll fuse used by the artillery and has a lethal splinter distance of about 50 meters. However, lack of smoke may be seen as a disadvantage by many land commanders. Each ship carries a smaller number of salvos than an artillery battery, which is also supported by a logistics chain. But this can easily be offset by a swift replacement of the gunship when its rounds are exhausted, followed by a timely and efficient replenishment at sea.
HMS Ardent was hit.
Past campaigns have shown that the tactical risks imposed on a gunship are considerable. Improvements in ammunition will see the maximum range of the naval gun increased to 29,000 yards. However, for planning purposes, the present range is considered to be 20,000 yards, well within the range of potential coastal batteries. The need to stay within the fire support area, the box, restricts the ship's ability to maneuver, a problem further complicated by the unpredictability of weather conditions and sea states. When restricted to the fire support area, the gunship is particularly vulnerable to attack, so efficient defense in all 3 dimensions is vital. However, in spite of these limitations, naval gunfire support offers a lot of flexibility and hitting power to the landing force, providing its use is properly planned.
One Type 42 destroyer is really the equivalent of a battery of guns in firepower terms, and so even that can give us quite a lot of effect. And of course the beauty of a Naval Gunfire Support coming from a ship at sea is that, you know, we can support it, we can replenish that ship with ammunition and so on. And so it's perhaps more than just a single gun you're looking at.
A gun target line at 2800, ready 30, out.
4-5.
The naval gun and its potential is only as good as those who put it to work. Naval Gunfire Support is a team effort of great complexity, and this is reflected in the training given to the Specialist Amphibious Unit 148 Battery.
And no mission. Accompany withdrawing over.
Based at Royal Marines Poole, 148 Battery has a complement of 61, made up of 51 Army ranks and 10 from the Royal Navy, an organisation structured for a special task.
148 Battery is unique, not just within the British military, but also worldwide. There is no other unit that has the same capabilities and has the same tasks to carry out, being able to control naval gunfire, forward air controlling and artillery, and that is why we are such a specialist unit.
It is during amphibious operations that the battery's specialist skills are fully employed. On board the LPD during the initial phase of the landings would be a Naval Gunfire Staff Officer. He would be found in the Amphibious Operations Room as part of the Supporting Arms Coordination Centre, and when command of the operation chops ashore, he would move with the Brigade Commander's Fire Support Centre within the headquarters. It is from either of these locations that control of the fire from ships on the gun line is exercised. On board the gunship would be one of the battery's 12 Territorial Army Naval Gunfire Liaison Officers. These are the captain's naval gunfire advisors, keeping him up to date on the land situation as it changes and assisting the ship's own bombardment control officer in the interpretation of fire orders.
Splash.
On the ground in the target area is the Naval Gunfire Forward Observation Team, whose job it is to provide shore-based direction of fire from the ships at sea.
148 Battery has 7 NGFO teams, which are made up normally of an officer or a senior NCO leading the team, with a bombardier, which is a corporal equivalent, as his second in command, as his assistant, and communicators, including a Royal Navy communicator.
All who join the battery are volunteers, and the entry requirements are amongst the most rigorous in the armed forces. Training starts with the All Arms Commando Course at Lympstone, the course all Royal Marines undergo to win their green berets. Successful completion of the All Arms Commando Course is followed by a parachute course before a return to Poole to complete the courses necessary to bring together all the specialist skills needed to become part of a Naval Gunfire Forward Observation Team.
Of course it will be picked up.
Subjects covered on the courses range from boat handling to advanced patrolling and first aid, spotter training both in the classroom and on various live firing ranges, and communications training to allow all members of the team to become familiar with the procedures and equipment necessary to control naval gunfire. The battery's observers are also trained to control the fire of field artillery, mortars, armed and attack helicopters, and fixed wing aircraft from both the United Kingdom and NATO armed forces. In addition, there are the skills needed to work with advanced forces often behind enemy lines.
OPs on key ground and
provide advance warning.
Once briefed on its mission, the observation team can reach its covert OP using one of many insertion techniques.
7 days rations, water jerry cans per team, ammo, and bat sims as issued.
Gunship, headquarters and planning staff, and observation team. These are the component parts for naval gunfire support. In a large amphibious operation, naval gunfire would form an element of a much larger overall fire plan. But whatever the size of the operation, naval gunfire support gives force commanders a fast, mobile, hard-hitting tool.
NGS is critical to an amphibious landing because effectively naval gunfire and air are the only main forms of firepower that we have until we have a foothold on the ground. So effectively naval gunfire, if you like, will shoot the landing force ashore, and until the artillery gets itself established ashore, there is no other form of indirect fire support.